So I would hate to see the societies losing that. And the projects fund, we've got €300,000 from the projects fund in the last 7 years and done some really amazing things with it. And it's a huge opportunity for us. So I don't think the 93k is going to make up for the loss that we're going to have in those other two funds. And we're not an island either. We work with everybody else. So when other people hurt, like our colleagues in student service and clubs and everything, hurt from the lack of the levy, we all lose. And I wouldn't like to see that.
Thank you very much, Ríona. And as you might have seen there, we're recording the session and it'll only be the people who are pinned who are recorded. But if anyone has an issue with that, that's no problem. Please send us a message. But it'll only be the people who are pinned right now who you'll be able to see in the recording. I'm going to go on to John next. John, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about where you work?
Yeah, so I'm John Hannon, I'm Director of Student Services. So Student Services obviously provide all the support and the development opportunities. So societies is obviously a core part of Student Services. But the other aspects of it are access, disability, mature students, also of course the Career Development Centre, all the areas around that placement, and accommodation and welfare are the kind of key facets of it. And we're very closely linked with the student health unit as well, because well-being, access, all of those different areas, helping people around transitions, so orientation, all those kinds of things are core to what we do. So the support and the development of students are what we're about. And I suppose an awful lot of that work, that really important work in terms of supporting students, and particularly those who are disadvantaged. Because we have to remember that 1 in every 4 of our students are, by definition, one of the target groups are disadvantaged, particularly from a socioeconomic point of view. So the levy is really, really important, obviously, from our perspective, in making sure the students are successful and have a really good experience.
Thank you very much. And Sharon, I'm going to ask you the same question, if that's okay.
Yeah, great. So hi everyone, I'm Sharon Bailey and I'm Bursar and Chief Financial Officer. So my remit within the university is to look after the finance, to advise the URAS on our governing authority, to advise them on all financial matters as well. And I'm very happy to be here this evening, and hopefully I can answer your questions if you have any factual information that you need or any more details that you need that you don't really have at the moment. I'll do my best to answer any of those questions.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Sharon. Let me just remind you, if you have absolutely any questions, please send them to Carol, whose name is PM me your questions in capital letters, and we'll get to them once we're done going through all the panelists. So Mike, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, Barry, thanks for having us. Mike Heskin's my name, Director of Sport. Some of you in the clubs obviously clearly know me. So we're here just to give the information in terms of how the levy will affect sport. And for us, it has 2 elements that are affect us greatly. First of all, in terms of the clubs themselves, the finances of the clubs on an annual basis. The present campaign is suggesting that we're going to get 93,000 more in current funding for current expenditure. But what it omits to tell you is that because of the loss of the project fund, clubs have got an average of 200,000 per year. So in the last 5 years, we're pretty much up to €1 million, which is used to purchase all those things that clubs and students just can't afford, like safety equipment, boats, water equipment, compressors, the ropes for the climbing club, the ropes for the climbing wall, everything you can imagine that runs to tens of thousands that are essential to run a safe program, which in normal life is done by fundraising. It's as simple as that. So our clubs are not put to the same level of pressure of raising funds that clubs in the outside world are because of this money. The important thing to also remember is that the Student Union has put forward the concept there's only 85,000 euros goes to clubs from the central funds, and that's incorrect. And just for the figures for your own information, 369,000 came from the university directly into clubs the last year before COVID. And that was supplemented obviously by the 310,000 that comes from the levy. So they're separate. So it's almost pound for pound. In addition to that, it costs roughly 1.2 million to run sport. So if you start to think about all the expenses, everything from running Dangan, the light and heat, the spotlights, the pavilion, the staff, all those areas, the insurances, the transfer costs, you add it all up, it comes to 1.2 million. So it's not true to say we get 85,000 a year. The other thing about the last part is the levy itself. I should say you should look at the levy, and people say it's money for Kingfisher. It's not. It's money for an investment in sport for the student. And this is an ongoing investment. And it is likely that in the next 5 years, you as a student body will require a further investment in capital expenditure for our students. And that will require a levy. And if you contact your peers in other universities in UL and UCC and UCD, all of them are already contributing levies for capital programs such as these. If we lose this levy, then we have problems, because first of all, we're going to create a shortfall, which needs to be paid back. And it's very important to understand that if we don't have the partnership with the central funds, where they put the money up front to build the building, and then we pay them back later. In some other institutions, they require all the money to be collected first, and then the building starts. So we have another good idea. We won't have to wait 25 years to get the money together. But if we renege on our repayment, then the lender has to ask the question, why would they trust us the next time around? And that's a fundamental danger. And for me in sports, when we want to build more pitches, waterproof centres, maybe more gyms, more facilities, to lose that level of trust is going to undermine our ability to deliver the strategic plan going forward. So it's imperative that we're working hand in hand with the management so we can access that level of funding when we need it, and we need it now. So this is so important that we don't lose that. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Mike. And that's all the panelists for tonight, everyone. So we received a couple of questions, and I'm going to call on the people who asked questions, and they'll be able to unmute. If you'd like to ask an anonymous question, that's completely fine. Just clarify that when we are sending it to Carol. So the first question we've gotten in is from Avril. Avril, if you'd like to unmute. If not, that's okay. I can ask the question, but yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. If the levy is reduced, will the student membership in the Kingfisher, will that go up? And will there be, like, we'll say if we wanted to join the Orchestra Society, will there be like a membership fee that would have to be introduced?
I'll take that. In terms of your membership, the levy has no effect on it because you pay your membership to Kingfisher. However, if you're in a club currently, you have free access as your club from 5:30 to 11 o'clock at night and from 7 to 9 in the mornings. That will not be able to be sustained because that we cover that in costings, and that money would have to become somewhere else. So previous to 5 years ago, the agreement would have been that everybody who entered as a club member would have paid €2 every time. Now that has been removed, but if we lose the source of funding, such action may again have to be brought in to raise the money to going forward. So that's the detrimental area there. So it's a short-term save, but in the end, like everything, there's no free lunch. Somebody's going to have to pay.
Would you like to ask anything else, Avril? Would you like to follow up?
No, that's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Avril. And the next question I have is an anonymous question, and it's for the whole panel. So whoever's able to answer, if you all want to answer. How will this levy change affect students who are not in clubs and societies? Ríona, would you like to take it?
Just to start with, massively, because Arsenal is not a society building. The Projects Fund does not just provide things for clubs and societies. And I think John could pop in there and just give a list of some of the amazing things that the Projects Fund actually does. And Arsenal, the kitchen, the hub. Any student, by the way, can book a room in Arsenal, and a lot of them do. A lot of class groups and people rehearsing for their for their actual shows, and the music students and all the rest all book Arsenal. So it's not just for clubs and societies.
Yeah, it's a really good question indeed. So I suppose how beyond the clubs and societies, which you know are pretty obvious, but I suppose the great thing about the levy is that it's well, first of all, the decisions are made jointly up to this point by students and by representatives of the university, including myself. So it gives seed capital, and it gives money for things that students believe, or let's say there's a survey done and there's something that's really important. So a very good example is active consent. I mean, I remember when, you know, we had the videos around the hunting ground and so forth, and people were really taken aback at what was happening in universities internationally. But it was going to take a long time to do anything about it. So we were first in there with active consent. We were actually able to start the ball rolling, and all the other universities have come in. And of course, the support has come in from the Higher Education Authority and from the university around active consent. But we were able to work straight away, get seed capital, get moving, get the workshops going. So that's an example. Shasus is another example where we had a lot of issues around mental health, and we were really concerned about it. So the student union and myself and the chaplaincy got together and we started Shasus, 300 people per year, then 500 people per year being trained directly around how to support each other, peer support, how to intervene if somebody is vulnerable or at risk. And again, I suppose the project fund, and I'm looking at it from that perspective, it gives the seed capital, and then those initiatives are funded elsewhere. The employability award, you know, we really want our students to, who, particularly those who don't get a placement, to be able to get some accreditation, and actually the employability award goes straight on to the document that people get from the university. So that meant that the skills were recognized, that, you know, that make a big difference to job prospects. So that's really important. I mean, you know, we're in a tough time now, but next year is not going to be easy for graduates. So this is, just today, I heard there were 330 students this year already who have got the employability award, who are over the line. So you know, these are the kinds of initiatives that make such a big difference. And also, for example, sustainability strategy. Like when we looked at the strategic plan for the university, the single thing that students were saying that was most important is sustainability. So our environment, our health and well-being. So we were able to actually, with the Student Project Fund, get seed capital, get moving, get a plan together. So I suppose the point that I'm making is that yes, the clubs and societies are really, really important in relation to this, but the levy makes a massive difference. It gives that seed capital, it gets things moving, and then other sources of funding have to come. And it's really important to remember as well that that levy is actually approximately 800,000 per year. 300,000 comes from the levy, but the parallel funding that comes from the university is 500,000. So that means that students directly have an input immediately at source in making those decisions. So from my point of view, it's really important to work in partnership with students. But this, if it goes, you know, puts it in jeopardy. So that's I suppose a number maybe of examples around it.
And just very quickly there, for any first years, we were the only college in the country that was actually able to have on-campus safe orientation, because we had already developed your space with the support of the Projects Fund. And then we were very quick off the mark in being able to roll out something. And this year, all our Alive, employability, the Students' Union, all the different extracurricular activities have all been able to be supported. We were also able to integrate Zoom and Teams, etc., into your calendar. So we were so ahead of the posse. And I've been talking to other societies officers around the country. They've talked about the lack of activity. Their societies weren't getting engaged. We had 1,000 events in semester one. You know, so I can just say that without the Projects Fund, we wouldn't have had all of that. So, and that was for everybody.
Perfect, and I'm going on to the next question. Ciara O'Neill.
Hi, it's kind of related to what John just said. I wanted to know that if the referendum passes, would the university be in a place to maintain its current level of funding of the project fund at the approximately 500,000, or would it be reduced proportionately, as it's currently a 60-40 split, that if the levy contribution was reduced to 80,000, what would happen there?
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily me. I think maybe Sharon would be better placed to answer that question.
Yeah, I'm very happy to take that question. Thanks, Ciara. So the university at the moment invests 1.25 million across various items that the levy also invests in, and they would be the Students' Union itself, the societies, clubs, the health unit, and the Student Project Fund. But if the levy passes, the university is left with a debt of 5.5 million on the sports centre. And we're going to have to find that funding somewhere, okay? That decision has not been made yet where we find it, but we will have to find it somewhere. So some services or some activities are going to have to stop. And I suppose, you know, in looking at this and starting to think of how do we start to plan for this for the future, obviously that 1.25 million is on the table now that we need to say, well, that's a possibility that we can look at. There's certain things in there that we just couldn't cut. We'd never cut, like nobody could stand over, like the health unit, we just couldn't. But I think the Student Project Fund is seriously at risk. And the reason I say that is because the proposal is to drop the levy contribution by 75%. So down from over 320,000 down to just 80,000 from the levy. And the university really couldn't justify investing $500,000 in a project fund that the message we're taking from it is the students' union and the student body don't value the fund. So we would find that probably one of the easiest ones to say, we will stop doing that. And there's certainly no guarantee that we will continue to do the proportionality of funding. So the 60-40, there's no guarantee of that at all. And I just feel that's the one most at risk. The other one probably at risk there as well is the funding that we give to the students' union. And the reason we would pick on that one is because the proposed levy is massively increasing the amount of funding going to them from the levy. So there's a 60%, 59% increase in the funding going to them with the proposal there. And even if we withdrew the funding we give them, they'd still get an awful lot more funding. So again, that's, to me, that's a fairly easy one to kind of look at and say, that's a possibility and that's on the table for us to do that. But just to clarify, those decisions have not been taken, but we will have to take tough decisions, and there's no doubt about that.
Gurmagat, Sharon, and Kira, do you want to ask a follow-up question on that?
Yeah, it's again to do with finding that money. It's something that has come across my emails in the past couple of weeks, is concerned that finding that money could be put onto postgrads and international students whose fees aren't capped. Is that something that the university might consider in terms of finding that money?
No, absolutely not. I mean, we've had a policy of increasing some of our non-EU fees over the last 3 or 4 years, and we were trying to bring them more in line with our comparators. And certainly non-EU fees would be seen as a badge of quality and that. So for some of the markets that we operate in, but there's certainly no way that we'd actually be looking at those fees to try and recoup this. No, not at all.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So just going to move on to the next question, which is Chloe. Chloe, do you want to unmute there and ask that question?
Yeah, my question, I guess, is probably aimed at Mike, but will this levy, if it is passed, have an effect on the water sports centre that you're planning to build, or is the funding for that already being secured? I'm just thinking if it will, then that's another major point for the Vote No campaign.
Good question, Chloe. 2 things to understand: that probably 50% of the money is already put away. But funny enough, that came from this project fund many, many years ago. So the reason it's even happening is because of the project fund. Going forward, we're in a fundraising mode with the foundation at the moment, but it is likely that we will probably need to have a borrowing of some kind going forward. And we will sit down and work out the mechanisms of that. But for that to happen, I go back to the situation that there must be trust within the organization, and we go to the central funds and say we have a means of paying this back, which will probably come from the student body. They will say, well, we got burnt last time, how do we proceed this time again? So everything is on the table once this happens, because the ultimate problem for us is that the people we go to most for money in the end of the day is central funding, and they manage the funds and they do it on a legal basis, and they gave the money to build the sports centre based on a trust and a legal agreement. And now one side is unilaterally withdrawing from that agreement. There's no way you can go forward under management, particularly with public funds, and take a punt on that again. So it's imperative that we have the credibility in the market from a student point of view with central funds, that when we say we do something, we see it through. I think then we can find, it's one thing that if we have a problem to renegotiate the payment back. I mean, if you wanted a reduction, there was possibly a chance to talk to Central and say we could reduce the payment down to a lesser sum, but extend the time period. But that conversation never happened. No, there was never an opportunity to do that. So I think, you know, it's very important that when you want to do these sort of relationships, you sit down, have a conversation and negotiate. You don't unilaterally pull out and then see can you recuperate after that. It's not the way to go.
Sharon, would you like to hop in there?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, Mike's absolutely right. The university is very happy to sit down with the student body and negotiate the debt and how that might be repaid over a longer period. We appreciate they want to do different things, and we'd be very happy to do that. But when this came to us last November, it had been voted on by council, the amounts had all been voted on. And even when we said, you know, could we not sit and look doing things, phase this in over a number of years, maybe reduce the €100 to the sports centre to 50 and pay it over a longer period than that, it was just no. There was like, and you know, no is not a negotiating position. It's nobody can progress doing those things, but it was no, and that was too complex. But all I will say is that, you know, that is still the university's position. We are still very happy to negotiate with students.
Chloe, would you like to follow up on that?
I don't know if anyone here knows the answer, but how is it actually legal to withdraw from a contract like that? Or is it because the university entered into it and then that's why the university is going to end up picking up the pieces if the students pull out of it? And if students vote to enter into it, is that not legally binding in some format? Like, how is this actually allowed to happen is my question. I don't understand.
I'll take that maybe as well, Barry, if that's okay. So yeah, it's a great question, Chloe. So there is no legal agreement, okay? So there's no written document between the students' union or the student body and the university on this. It was an agreement between both that the referendum would take place, and if it was passed, then the university will provide the funding and recoup it over an up to 18-year period. And the university would have been very happy to do that and would have trusted its student body with that. There is nothing to stop any student calling a referendum. That's part of your constitution. It's your right, it's democracy, and change the levy at any stage. And in fact, that would be one of our concerns, even with the proposal on the table. This could be changed next year and could be completely done away with. So even when you're hearing, oh, clubs and societies will get an extra 90,000, maybe next year they'll get nothing at all. And that could have been put in this levy. They could have said this cannot be changed for 5 years or it cannot be changed for 10 years. They chose not to do that. So it's very disappointing. The student union is not a corporate body either. So in terms of the university taking recourse to this, we can't take legal action against them, which is also disappointing. And it leaves the university in a very vulnerable position, and it will leave them very uncomfortable and wary of getting into this position again.
Thanks very much, Chloe. And Ríona, sorry, you have your hand up. Did you want to say something there?
Going to add is that the relationship with the university and Doris Maclean, which was entered into in 2006, is very worrying. I don't know how we will move forward. I don't know how we can renege on an agreement to pay a small portion of what it costs to keep Doris Maclean up and running. So I don't know what we'll do. People will possibly have to start paying. And as I said, we are actually the envy of every societies officer in the country. Why we're throwing that out of the water for €17 is very disappointing.
And Mike, would you like to hop in?
Yeah, I would just like to point out that, you know, when the students themselves voted this referendum back in 2003, every student up to now, up to this date, has stood by that. You know, this levy has stood this test of time. Many students have entered, passed through and graduated out of this university and paid the levy without any complaint. All the student presidents have come right through. It has been no problem. I am not aware that there's been a major cry in terms of this €100, bar one or two political entities. There hasn't been a mass situation, and yet we've been put in this situation, in my opinion, without consulting with the greater body. And we're put into what is basically a financial crisis, which is the last thing everybody needs in the middle of a pandemic. And this has been self-inflicted. And when this gets passed, and if it does get passed, we wake up on Monday morning, what actually will happen at that stage? The only thing I see that happening is the Students' Union will have a lot more money. And we know from last night, they already have a reserve of 500,000 put away in the bank, and just look at how do you create a reserve. You create a reserve is that you don't need all the money you earn each year, and therefore you're in a position to put some money away. It's a good business model. It's something you should do. But if you're in a position to save, then it doesn't indicate that you have a huge need for additional funding unless you want to make a massive profit. So I find that strange. So in order to give more money to an organization that has already seems to be financially secure and well managed in that basis, we have creating financial crisis right across the campus. And I'm not sure what the gain is.
Perfect, Gurmahagat. And I'm just going to let you know, everyone, that we've reached a halfway point. So I just, we have a couple of questions coming in. So I know it's hard to give concise answers and when the questions are so deep. So if there are questions that are left at the end, I'll make sure to follow up with the relevant bodies and get back to the people who've asked questions just to make sure everyone's satisfied with their answers. So we have note of anyone who has asked questions at the moment and I'll follow up on them. So we're just going to keep going through them, and we have a couple of anonymous questions coming up now. The first question is, will the university maintain the 500,000 contribution to the project fund if the levy is cut?
I'll take that, Barry, and I can't answer it definitively. What I can give you is, I suppose, my own view on it, and I think that that 500,000 is that serious risk if the levy the proposed changes to the levy pass.
Sharon, and the next question, another anonymous question. Does the referendum affect future postgrad fees? I know that was kind of answered earlier, but just if we have an answer on that again.
No, it shouldn't affect future postgrad fees at all.
Perfect, Gurmahagat. Next question, and I think, Ríona, you might be most equipped to answer this one. Was Hub Central started up through either the Student Projects Fund or the Mauchline Fund?
It was actually a combination of both. 2017, we had built all this great new space, and we realised that we couldn't actually manage a kitchen without it. So we got funding from Student Services, their central fund. We got funding from Mauchline, and we got funding from the Projects Fund. And that allowed us to do a 3-year pilot project, which we've actually managed to stretch a little bit longer. And that is... yes, and it has been amazing to see the number of students. I've looked at it as like the gateway to societies, like the gateway drug to get you hooked on societies. You get into the hub, you have the cup of tea, the next thing you're chatting to people. And that is why, while we are the socks box and we say we're society's office, we're actually so much more. We also look after a whole health promotion side of the university. We work with all our partners in student services, and societies are central to the university, and that is because we work with everybody. Even our calendar is now the university calendar. We are in an exemplary position, but to renege now and not be able to move forward, we have a €180,000 amazing project ready to rock and roll in Mauchline as soon as we get back in. But we're going to have to say how we're going to do all of that stuff. I'm very worried.
Ríona, and then going on to the next question. Is it true that the college will be running a multi-million budget surplus from last year? And if so, what does the university plan to do with this surplus, especially with regards to student services for which there is a severely high demand?
I'll take that one as well, Barry. The most recent management accounts that we have concluded are up to February. Okay, that's only 5 months into the year, so you can't always take that as an absolute trend. We have, at the moment, we would be forecasting that we will be in a surplus situation this year, whereas when we budgeted, we thought we'd be in a deficit situation. The year has been very, very uncertain, very disappointing that we're not on campus and incurring some of the costs that we'd love to be incurring having our students back there. So at the moment, the forecast is that we will be in surplus, not huge surplus, but we will be in surplus, which is a much better position than a deficit.
And I think this is a similar question. Why can't the university make up the shortfall with their annual profits?
So we prepare a budget every year. We're in the process of doing that at the moment, and we'll be presenting that to our finance committee and to our governing authority in June. We generally budget to break even. Okay, we don't budget to make a surplus. That's not our business. we invest any funds we have back into students and student services, and that is what we will be doing next year. But usually there's an awful lot of calls on our budget, and we don't have an awful lot of scope. We get a lot more requests for funding than we can ever actually fund, and we usually apply our scarce resources to those most in need. And as I said earlier, you know, if we're talking about the Student Project Fund, the message management are hearing, if this passes, is it is not a valued fund. And I don't think we could justify investing into that.
Yeah, Gurmagat. Next question. Is there a possibility if we as students vote against the levy referendum that we could come up with a new agreement with the university where we might get free gym membership as well?
So there's absolutely, it's more than a possibility. We're happy to negotiate and enter into discussions and conversations and everything else. Free gym membership, I don't know what that would cost, so I can't actually say that could be something on the table, but it's certainly something we could look at. Mike might have a better idea of that. But if these are the things that matter to students, then yes, we're very happy to look at them and see what we could do or how we could make it easier for us all to move towards those things.
Perfect. And Mike, do you want to hop in there?
Yeah, just in terms of free gym membership, just to you understand the background of it. In UCC, this free gym membership or so is presented. But you need to understand there that in UCC, they have the Mardyke Arena company. It's a private company that runs the facility. And every year they receive 2.7 million from the students in a levy. It doesn't go to UCC, the university. It goes into the private company. It's 120 euros per head. And that's every student pays it. And that's why they have free membership. It comes straight from the levy. None of that 2.7 million goes to clubs or societies. It goes straight into the private company. So even though the students have paid 2.7 million and they get into the gym, none of that money is used for sport. It's to run the facility of there's 90 people employed in a private company out of that one. In addition to that 120, they do pay 40 euros capital fund to repay the building as well. So it's a misnomer to say it's free membership. And that's very important to remember. In UCD, it looks like it's the same, but the students actually get charged the money in a different way. They still pay for it. And just for your own information, in UCD, even though you have free access to the gym, there's no access to the gym or the building or the swimming pool between 5 and 8 o'clock every evening for students. Nor is there any access to the building before 9 o'clock in the morning. So basically, the prime time when everybody wants to go to the gym is reserved for private membership only. Students cannot enter the gym till after 8 p.m. I know it because I was a member there for 3 years. So again, there's a caveat there. Currently, all our clubs get free access for the training right through the day under circumstances. So free access is a misnomer. But if students want to redesign and go that way and have that type of levy, like all things are available in negotiation, we can make it work. We sit down with the university, we have to sit down with the provider, the management company, and come up with a model. All things are possible for certain. But just remember, there's nobody getting a free membership. There's a payment being made each and every year.
Gurmagat, Mike and Ríona, do you want to hop in there?
I just wanted to add that we would have been delighted to get involved in a conversation around the levy. The health unit arbitrarily getting €3 extra, which doesn't actually get them the psychiatrist that they need, but €6 would. Societies may have said, you know, we'll shave €5 off or €4 off the extra money. The Orstomachtlein levy, maybe there's a €5 that could be saved. If we'd had the conversation, I firmly believe we would have reached a figure that everybody would have been happy with, but not a single consultation with anybody about the process. And that frightens me, that people who won't actually have a conversation at this stage are now going to be getting an extra €500,000 off student money.
Okay, perfect, Gurmagat. And I'm just going to move on. I read that apparently the university offered to the SU to reduce the levy by €50 and that the SU declined. Why was this not put forward as a referendum to the students? And I just would say that there are no SU reps here right now. So what I would say is If anyone would like to meet with Porrick, or if you'd like to organise a meeting like this with Porrick, please let me know. I'd be happy to mediate it or anything like that. If you want to send an email to Porrick, please do. If you want to send an email to me, I'll try and get an answer. If that person wants to let me know that they asked a question, I'd be happy to follow up with you as well and find an answer for you. But yeah, would anyone like to answer that? I don't think anyone can.
No, I can't really answer the question, but I can just confirm that I made the offer that, you know, could we look at the levy and maybe reduce the €100 to the sports centre down to 50. So I absolutely said that's fact, but I can't say further why it didn't go anywhere else.
And the next question is actually for you, Sharon. Has the SU ever approached the Finance Committee in relation to this upcoming referendum, since they have stated many times this week that NUIG should pay for the reduction of the Student Project Fund and or the Mockling Fund?
So I think I sort of missed the beginning of that, but has the SU spoke to the Finance Committee, was it?
I'll just read it out again. Has the SU ever approached the Finance Committee in relation to this upcoming referendum, since they have stated many times this week that NUIG should pay for the reduction of the Student Project Fund and or the Mockling Fund?
Yes, so the Students' Union made us aware of the proposed change to the levy in November. We met with them. This is when we had the discussion of, could we negotiate this? Could we maybe make other changes? We were told, no, this is what the students want. This is what we're mandated to have a referendum on. And any other suggestions were far too complex for them. So following on from that, I actually wrote to the university management team and I wrote to the Finance Committee and updated them on the proposals. And we had a conversation at the Finance Committee in December. And then the Students' Union issued quite a long document on the 31st of March to the university management team, and also asked that it go to the Finance Committee, and it was discussed at the Finance Committee at their meeting on the 7th of April. The Finance Committee really pushed the Students' Union to please go back and negotiate and find a middle ground and delay the referendum. And the referendum was subsequently called the next morning.
Gurmagat, Sharon. And then again, Sharon, the next question is for you. Hi, I don't think my question was answered there by Sharon, unfortunately. I asked what they plan to do with the expected budget surplus, especially with regards to investment in student services.
So as I said, we're preparing our budget at the moment, and we'll be receiving a lot of requests for funding, and we will be going through those and bringing that through our Finance Committee and our Governing Authority in June. So the plan for investment of any resources available for next year will be complete by the end of this June.
Thank you. Mike, sorry, do you want to hop in there?
Yeah, I suppose just to give a viewpoint from, not from Sharon's office, but from the other side of it in terms of funding. When there is a surplus in the university, all of us in our departments, and you think of all the schools and all the departments, we all have an opportunity to make a bid to see, can we get some extra funding? Everybody's looking for more computers, more space, more staff, more equipment, everything from, if you think of the pavilion, all the way down to the gates at the front of the hospital, up front of the university. That's 2,500 staff. You can work it out. Everybody's looking for a few extra bob every year. And we're in a hierarchy. And most of us never get to that conversation. That shows you the level of demand for this money. There's a huge demand. I would imagine that if for every million that Sharon will have, there's 10 million of an ask. I think recently I heard in terms of capital investment that the ask from the university at the moment is about 100 million was what people would like to use in capital investment, and clearly that can't be achieved. So it's not a case that there's a big pot of money and somebody doesn't know what to do with it, and oh, we'll give it to the student sector. There's so many other levels involved that, you know, just to be aware from our point of view that getting money out of that pot is very difficult, and competition is absolutely incredible.
Thank you. And we're just moving on to about 13-14 minutes left. So just please be aware of that if you don't mind. Thank you very much. So the next question is from Adam Flannery, if you want to ask it.
Hi, I asked two questions there and I'm not sure if which one you were referring to.
A general view for students and societies that a no vote for this referendum.
Okay, so From what I've seen on social media and whatnot, societies as a whole do tend to be towards the no side, but I was wondering, has there been any information collected on just how clubs, students in clubs feel about the referendum as a whole, if there's a general consensus or?
I think she's pinned there. I think Kirsty might be the right person to ask this question.
Yeah, so obviously I can't speak on behalf of absolutely every single club. It's not absolutely every single club that has come to me, and the clubs that have spoken to me and have openly stated their opinion on it have all been a no vote. I have not had one club come to me saying that they are currently in a yes position. I'm not sure if that's as much information as you want. I can go a little bit further on that, but the current stance of clubs that has been brought to me is no as well.
Perfect, thank you.
Gormalgad Adam and Gormalgad Kirsty. Chloe, would you like to another chance to speak?
Yeah, thank you. I don't specifically have a question. I just have 2 points. I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but the question was asked as to why the SU didn't accept the 50% reduction last night. And the response that we got was basically, well, the university should fund everything anyway. And that's why they weren't happy to accept a middle ground on that. I know it was just put to the SU last night, and that was basically their response. If people were wondering. And also I just think it's really important for people to remember, if people are going and, you know, spreading the news of this after the meeting, that the profit that the university is making this year is not a guaranteed profit, because the student union have made the argument that the student project fund is not a guaranteed fund for any one sector of the university, and while it's not, it has consistently shown up for all of these sectors. And equally, if they're making that argument, they can't be making the argument that the college is making a massive profit every year. So if the student project fund is not reliable as a source, then neither is the university's profits. I just wanted to make that point for people that are trying to make arguments on behalf of the no side. Thank you.
Gormalgad Chloe. The next question is for Ríona. Ríona, if this is passed, where will large festival events like ISDA, Akumacon, musical inters, dance inters, Teddy Bear Hospital, where we need multiple rooms at once and a need for a secure building?
To be honest with you, Barry, I hope that that won't come to pass, but I don't know what's going to happen. As it is, we work very closely with the conferencing office in relation to conferencing coming in, and we negotiate very, very well with them. We try to accommodate them without interfering with the students. As I said, the RT debate was a new staff member who actually didn't realise there was actually a protocol agreed to and jumped the gun, and it was very difficult to claw back. But I hope won't happen again. But what was very interesting is that you actually asked, Pádraig was asked a question, and he actually replied today that we're scaremongering that we would lose our space to conference and corporate bookings. And this is the lack of consultation with anybody who knows anything. Even if we believe this, what type of conference we want a space to hire a space in Orstmachlin in term time? There's no parking, catering is already at capacity. We live in a city with lots of hotels that actively pursue conference and corporate businesses. The idea that there is a queue of conference business wanting to pay us to use the space on a Wednesday afternoon is a nonsense. I can guarantee you that is not true, because I spend a huge amount of my time fending off poor Patricia in the conferencing office so that we can actually keep the spaces for students. So if we have no money, we can't pay for upkeep. We have a huge amount of equipment, a huge amount of work done in the building. If we can't upkeep that, and we have to go to the university cap in hand begging to be able to maintain our kitchen, begging to be able to maintain our acoustic rooms, our dance studio, our mirrors, and all the other things that we have because students have asked for them, I have no idea what's going to happen. I've literally no idea. Maybe Sharon would have some idea.
Yeah, Sharon, would you like to hop in there?
Yeah, great, thanks. Just, to say scaremongering, we're really not scaremongering at all, but like the very long document that the Students' Union presented to UMT and to the Finance Committee only, a couple of days ago, they clearly stated under Orstmachlin Fund, any deficit in running costs could be funded for commercial events. So we haven't suggested that. That's not our language at all, okay? That is coming directly from a document from the Students' Union.
Okay, thank you very much. And sorry, I did steal that question off someone, so I'd just like to ask, Richard, do you want to follow up with that question or anything?
No, I think that was answered really well. So thank you for answering my question.
Thanks, Richard. Sorry for stealing that as well. Always stealing the spotlight. I'm very sorry. So the next question is from an anonymous person, and the question is the option of having the levy reduced by €50 still on the table if there is a no vote?
Of course it is. And that's, like, to be honest, you know, that offer was thrown out in a meeting, you know, just verbally thinking off the top of your head, what could we do here? How could we maybe find middle ground or whatever else? So that is an offer thrown out there, but there might be 20 better, you know, ideas we could come up with together to find a better solution to it. The university is absolutely open to having any of that conversation and negotiation.
Perfect, Sharon. And then this is another anonymous question. Would the financial aid fund be affected by any changes in the levy? Maybe
I could come in terms of that. So the financial aid fund directly, no. But an example was, I suppose, we found with the financial aid fund few years ago that a lot of the students who applied, we had to change the system from being just an application with points to meet some of the students who had difficulties, and those difficulties needed the professional help. So in order to get that professional help, the Student Project Fund was able to get seed capital for a financial counsellor, and that was something that got the ball rolling around that, and the system behind it to make sure that we minimize risk around it. So I suppose accommodation and welfare can get support. So an example of that would be to an improved system. Now, of course, the university, you know, provides the vast majority of all the rest. But you know, if you that's a really good example. You get the seed capital, you can start something, you prove your case, and then you can seek funding elsewhere. So the direct question is, the financial aid fund comes from the Higher Education Authority and from the university. So immediately when you look at it, no. But again, if the Student Project Fund is taken away and there's some initiative that we need to improve the lives of students, if the Student Project Fund isn't there, we are really in a very vulnerable position. And obviously the students are the ones who suffer.
John and Sharon, do you want to hop in there?
Yeah, and just to reiterate what John has said, I mean, I know that the the financial aid fund, I could see no way that would be negatively impacted by this, because the you know, ethos of the university at the moment in terms of scarce resources is to look after those most in need and to put the resources where it's really, really needed. And just kind of following on from that, again, like throwing ideas out about maybe clever, progressive stuff that we could be doing together. You know, a very good argument is made that every student has to pay the levy, even students who receive SUSI grants, they have to pay this levy, and it can be a barrier to education. Maybe that's what we should change. Maybe people who are receiving full SUSI grants shouldn't have to pay this full levy, you know, and we could look after the people who need a little bit more, being a bit more creative, shifting things around. So I think, you know, we could just be a bit more clever if we worked together with the things that we really need to do.
Okay, Sharon, and we just have 2 questions left, and I'm going to go through them. I know we only have 4 minutes left, and any questions that come in after that, I'll make sure to follow up and contact the 4 panelists here, if that's okay with the 4 panelists. I haven't prior made that okay, but I'll send on the answers then to everyone. So the next question is from Lorraine. Lorraine, do you want to turn on your mic?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Lovely to see you. And I suppose yesterday evening, quite a few things came to light that I suppose were important for us to seek clarity around. And so there was a little bit of confusion, first of all, on the status of the Students' Union. So at one stage, they were describing themselves as a private company. And later on in the conversation, they interchanged that with this idea of being non-profit. And so I think from a student perspective, it's really important that we clarify that that's actually quite an important distinction to make. So the Students' Union, as a private for-profit company, can have a financial structure that's quite different from a non-profit company. So a non-profit company at the end of the year must ensure that its balance is zero and that it has distributed its funds. However, a for-profit entity is not bound by that legal structure in Ireland. And it's really important that we clarify that with students and that, I suppose, as students, you understand the nature of that that makeup of the union. So it is a for-profit company. And one of the things that came up to light yesterday when we asked them about the €14 moving from the projects fund into the students' union, the reallocation of that €14, and what was the plan? You know, it's going from a fund where we can all access it to a fund where it's just going to be utilised within the union and their mission and their goals. So what is their plan for it? And they could not articulate to us a plan that they have devised for that, and that is alarming. And one of the things that was brought up was this idea of a dream of having future housing for students that would be you know, a net zero housing structure or plan based on a UK model. So as we all know, when we go to Salt and buy a coffee, a beer, a sandwich, you know, we don't get it at cost price. It is a for-profit company. So I think my question really is, has anyone had that clarity from the union around their plan around the €14 additional per student? And, you know, is that going into their for-profit entity or is it going into their governance entity? And I think that's really key that we clarify that. Thanks, everybody.
I don't know if anyone's here is going to be able to clarify that, but I'm Lorraine, I'm very happy to follow up on that and try and get an answer and send it on to you if that's okay.
Thank you.
Perfect, no problem. So Kira, I know you would like to ask a question.
Yeah, I have a question for Sharon again. Sorry, you're getting all the questions this evening. It was the fact again that the SU have suggested that the university pick up the costs, and I was just wondering what other income sources the university may have that aren't students, because obviously our actual tuition fees would go towards the money the university has to spend. So is it not students' money either way, whether it's levy or fees? So is there other?
I think Kira might have cut out there, but did you get the question, Sharon?
I think I did. Yeah, I actually thought it was my connection that I was missing the sound. So I think the question was really around what other source of income the university has. So yeah, we've a few significant sources of income, the bulk of which is linked to students and teaching. So whether that's fee income that comes in from student, fee income that comes in from the HEA in lieu of free fees, or the grant that we get from the HEA as well. We also have research income that comes in, but that really comes in and goes out on research. And in fact, research is an expensive activity, so it tends to cost us money. And we have some commercial activities that students would be aware of. So we have our own accommodation, and we license some of the restaurants and things in that on campus. The last year and this year, commercial activity has completely bottomed out, as everyone would expect within the pandemic. But we're hoping that's just a short-term blip in that. But all of the income that comes in, yeah, it all gets reinvested in services. We do have a significant capital program ongoing at the moment, and particular things that we're doing that are essential and should have been done many years ago, like our new student record system, very significant investment in capital, and our new library, where we were very lucky to get 15 million from the state for that, and we're hoping to raise about 10 million from philanthropy for it, but we'll still have a huge ask from the university as well. So at times we have to put money away for that, we have to plan for those things, and we have to maintain things. But you're right, all the money that comes in, we all have the same aims. We want to make the university as good as it can be and as good a student experience as it can be. But the issue we have with the proposed change is there was an agreement. It has not been repaid in full. We still have a 5.5 million debt. And we just feel there was an agreement there, and that's not being honored. And that's not the way we would like to do business.
Thank you very much. And John, would you like to hop in?
Yes, I suppose I was reflecting as I was listening there, and I have three of my kids, one currently and two have gone through the university, and I asked one of them the other day, what do you think of the levy? and they looked at me and they said, "What's the levy?" And I suppose it's brilliant to have the people who are here this evening and were here yesterday evening. And I'm 23 years in the university, and I can say that this levy, whatever way you think about it, if there is the change that's proposed, will have the biggest impact on student health and well-being that I know of. You know, social, mental, physical, and so forth. And I really am just asking everybody here, you know, talk to, you know, make your own mind up as you will. You know, you're all adults here, but please, you know, inform others, get on that social media, tell the people, you know, who aren't maybe that interested, but it will impact every single one of them. So I'm just saying, you know, please let them know what your view is, and you know, it would be desperate if a few votes made a difference that will have an impact on every one of you and in the students coming in. You know, so I suppose we have that duty, and I'm not declaring one way or another. All I'm saying is, you know, please do get others to vote.
Gurmaga, John and Ríona, do you want to hop in there?
Just very quickly to say that we had many meetings last week at the USCG organised meetings. They mandated the Societies office to find out a lot of information. We had very little time, but we gathered as much as we could, and it's all on, it's in the chat there. If you want to just take that link with you, read through all the information. It should answer all your questions. If there's anything, because there's a lot of talk about secrets and people don't know things, it's actually all available. Also remember, nobody's actually on campus, so we don't have access to files and everything, but we did a lot of effort to try and make sure that you were informed. You're all intelligent, you come to university, inform yourself, make a decision, but don't be fooled by save €100 vote yes. It's much more complex than that.
Gurmaga, Ríona, and I know it's past 7, but I know there's one question I think there might be an answer to, and then that's all the questions we've received, so everything will be answered. So Avril, do you want to turn on your microphone and ask the last question?
Yeah, so you've been saying, you know, how that will say if this is passed that you might be in a vulnerable position and it won't be easy. That, like, will something be done to the Constitution to stop referendums happening that would put you in a vulnerable position? Or is it very much like the Irish Constitution that it can only be changed via a referendum?
Is anyone able to answer that?
I'm not able to answer it, but the Constitution would be the Students' Union Constitution, so we would have no remit over changing it whatsoever.
And Avril, if you want to follow up with me after as well, I can try and find an answer for that. I can ask Students' Union the same question. Kirsty, would you like to hop in there before we finish?
Yeah, it's not in relation to the last question there. It's just more from, I suppose, from a club's captain perspective of things. Like all the staff have said here, everyone's an adult. Everyone's entitled to make their own vote. If you want to say yes or no, that's completely your own decision. But the one thing that I know myself and Barry have been pushing for from the start is that people actually have the information available to them and that they can make an informed decision. No one's going to give out to you whatever way you vote. No, and if they do, they've no business doing so. You know, you are entitled to your own opinion, absolutely. But the one thing we just want is that people are informed. They know that if this happens, this is what's going to happen as a result. So, like, I myself will be voting no, but I don't expect anyone else to vote no. But what I do expect people to do is to actually do a little bit of reading before they make the decision, and that I would encourage you as clubs and societies who have reached out to students to show them the resources that are available and to encourage them to have a read both sides. You know, don't make a one-sided decision, yes or no. Make your decision based on both sides of the argument and go from there. Because at the end of the day, if it's a democratic decision, make an informed vote, and that's all anyone here is asking for. If it's voted in yes, it's voted in yes, then it was done on a democratic basis. If it's voted no, it's voted no. We're not here to try sway votes. We're here to actually give the information that people can make the vote that is best for them. So that's all I really have to say from a club's captain perspective, because I know there's a lot of misinformation going around there, particularly on Twitter and the likes. And just one thing I will say is, if you're on Twitter, be respectful about it. Be respectful no matter what side of the argument you're on, because I have seen a lot of, like we've said, accusations and I suppose not threats, it's the wrong word, but just you're entitled to your opinion, respect everyone else's opinion, and that's all I have to say on it all. And thanks for coming for tonight.
Kirsty, I was about to round up, but you've all done it there. As Kirsty said, please just try and look at all information. If you can't find information, please reach out. Society's office, the USCG are doing fantastic work to make sure information is out there to myself and Kirsty. We'll try and get answers to absolutely everything. And Kirsty covered everything. Just please be respectful. No matter what way you're voting, just make sure it's an informed vote. The information is there. The information is clear for the most part. So make sure you read the information and vote whichever way. I'd just like to thank John, Mike, Sharon and Ríona. Thank you very much for coming tonight. Ronan, Carol and all the softbox, thank you for assisting me in running tonight. I really appreciate it. And yeah, if you want any information, if you would like to meet with the Students' Union or the Students' Union President, let me know. I'd be happy to mediate that from a societies or clubs perspective. And yeah, reach out if you need anything. If Twitter's too much, take a break from Twitter. If anything's too much, please take a break, and it'll all be over in about 2 days. So yeah, gur míle maith agah gachtainna agus a ríist a fanil gur míle míle maith agah. So slán gachtainna.
And go míle maith agah Barry fi to chin to fáil. Slán
gachtainna. Slán. Slán.
Thanks, Barry. Bye. Bye.